Bread and Rose's kitchen for a little cooking class today. I hope that you are tuning in from your home and you are feeling well. Today we are making Pico de Gallo salsa and at-home fajitas. I don't know about you, but I've definitely missed eating out a little bit. And so I was craving some Mexican food and thought, you know what? Let's make some at-home fajitas. They are one of my favorites, and they use a lot of fresh summer produce that is still available now. So we are going to start by making the Pico de Gallo. Now this is a pretty simple salsa of sorts that's very fresh and a little bit chunkier than a normal salsa. The base for the salsa is tomatoes. Today I have Roma tomatoes, which are one of my favorites. I like them because they're a little firmer. They have less juice inside. So they make really nice salsas and really nice sauces because of the less juice, if that makes any sense. So we're going to start by cutting this tomato. You want to grab your knife, which is hopefully sharp, and just chop it in half. Alright, now we have two sections to work with. I'm going to put the flat side down for knife safety, and then cut it into a few strips. Alright, so just have these nice little strips here. But if you hold them together, we're going to chop the other way and just do a nice small dice of that tomato. We want to go with bite size or smaller because again, this is going to be a salsa. So we want it to be really easy to chew and easy to put onto our fajitas or scoop up with a tortilla chip later. Beautiful. I can smell the juiciness of those tomatoes. They're so fresh. Now you can use any tomatoes in this recipe. It could be cherry tomatoes, it could be the large ones, it could be yellow, red, whatever you have on hand. Alright, so we have these nice small pieces, and I'm going to scoop them into my bowl with the other tomatoes that I've already chopped. Alright, so that is a beautiful salsa base. Now we need to add our other flavors. So, I've got an onion. Any onion is great. I chose one large red onion today because we're going to use part of it in our Pico de Gallo and the rest of it in our fajitas. But if you have a yellow onion, that's great. If you have green onions, awesome. We just like that little bite that comes from the onions to pull out the other flavors. So, I'm not going to peel this yet. I'm just going to chop it in half. Okay? Sometimes when your onion is big, we want to be really careful. So I just put my knife in the onion, use the top of my hand on top of the knife to keep my fingers out of the way, and then use my body weight to push down on the onion for a nice slice through. Alright? From there, I feel like it's really easy to remove that skin. So let's pull that off. Just like so. Alright, I'm going to chop off this little end that still has some skin. And I'm going to chop off the butt end. Now one of the cool things about this Pico de Gallo recipe is that I didn't actually give you measurements. Salsas are kind of just about taste and how you want it to taste. So I chopped up the tomatoes that I have on hand, and now I'm going to chop up a portion of the onion that I think is going to be nice in this. If you really like onion, use more onion. If you don't like onion so much, then use less. So since this is a large onion, I'm going to start with about a fourth of this onion. Now again, we're going for really small pieces because we want little bites of onion mixed in within the salsa. We don't want one big chunk. So I'm going to use my fine knife skills, meaning I'm going to put my claw hands on top of the onion and cut little slits into that onion, keeping a little space on the side to hold it together. This is almost like a mince, meaning a really, really small cut. And I'm keeping my fingers in the claw just to protect them so I don't chop them, all right? So now we have these little slits in the onion. but it's still held together by the bottom. Now I'm going to flip it the opposite direction, keep the tip of my blade on the cutting board, and chop the other way. So you'll see it's coming out in these nice little pieces. This will be perfect for our pico de gallo. And then once you get to the end, just chop it. Nice small chop. Alright? So we have the nice small mince, and this is going to go into the bowl with the rest of our pico. Alright, and that nice purple color is beautiful on that red, isn't it? Alright. Jalapeno, optional. Any spicy pepper is great if you want a little bit of kick in your salsa. Now, the spicy part of a pepper is actually the seeds. So, if you like the taste of a pepper but you don't want a lot of the spiciness, then you can literally just take your finger and pull out the seeds and that membrane to not have as much spicy. Jalapenos are kind of tricky because sometimes they're really spicy and sometimes they're not at all. So sometimes you just have to try. We're going to take the same precedent with this hot pepper as we did with the onion, as small as possible. So, cut really finely. Again, if this pepper is really spicy, I don't want one big bite of pepper in my salsa. I want a little bit of spicy spread throughout. Small, small, small. Almost like you're chopping garlic. You can smell that pepper. If you are brave and want to test how spicy your pepper is, just pop a little piece of this in your mouth. See what you think. That will help you understand how much jalapeno you want in your salsa. All right, and that pepper goes in. Beautiful. Finally, I have a little bit of garlic that has already been pre-chopped, and the garlic goes in. All right, final flavor enhancer, cilantro. If you don't like cilantro, don't use it. To me, pico de gallo cannot be pico de gallo without cilantro. So I have a nice little bunch here that's been washed. I'm just going to chop off a little bit of the ends. The stems still have a lot of flavor, so I'm just going to chop off the part that is getting a little brown. And from here, I'm going to wrap them up. Okay, this will allow me to chop a little bit better, or quicker, I guess. I can smell it. All right. So I'm going to chop this up really finely, so the flavor of that cilantro can mix throughout the entire dish. Alrighty. And in goes the fresh herbs. Great. So we have a beautiful little stack of tomatoes, red onion, jalapeno, and cilantro, plus some garlic. Can't forget the garlic. Last items. A little bit of salt to bring out the flavor. Okay. I'm going to start with about a teaspoon, and I like to just measure it in my hand, so I don't measure too much. This is just enough to bring out the flavor. And then finally, you have a little bit of lime juice. You can use fresh lime as well, but I'm just going to do a little drizzle. Again, this is all to your taste. So this is the best part right here. You want to stir it up. So those flavors really mix in together. All right. And then you want to give it a taste. Okay, this is what cooking is about, tasting and adapting. Again, we didn't use any ratios here. We're just using the ingredients and how they taste. So I'm just going to take a little spoonful. I taste the fresh tomato. The onion is coming out. And there's a bite in the jalapeno. This is perfect for me. If you don't like spicy, again, take out that jalapeno. I'm not going to add any other lime juice and salt right now, because I think it's tasting pretty good. But the nice thing about the salsa is the flavors develop over time. So we're gonna set this aside while we make the rest of our fajitas, and by the time we eat it on our fajitas, it will taste even better. This will hold up in a Tupperware for up to a week. So again, make it ahead, eat it throughout the week. This salsa is also really adaptable. So if you don't like a chunky salsa, then put this entire container into your blender and mix it up so it's really smooth. Then you have a nice smooth salsa that you can pour on top of dishes. This is also a great base for a salad. So if you want a little bit more heft because you love these flavors, add a can of drained black beans to this, or add some chopped up corn. Then you can just eat it on top of lettuce, or honestly just eat it plain. And you've got some protein from the beans, you have some fiber coming in from the corn, as well as these lovely flavors. So play around with this, super neat. All right, I'm going to just flip over my cutting board for the fajitas. All right, we're still chopping vegetables, so we should be good to go. Now, classic fajitas normally include peppers and onions, as well as some kind of meat. And they're traditionally cooked over a hot flame, so you get a little bit of that char, and served to you in one of those skillets at a Mexican restaurant. Super good. So that is our inspiration today. So I have a red onion, I have a red pepper as well, but I also add a summer squash. This is not on your recipe, but I put it into our video today to show you that you can add any vegetable that you want to your fajitas, and it's still really delicious. So, we're gonna go back to this onion. Okay, I'm gonna peel off the rest of the skin from the other half, and chop off that end. Okay, it's kind of nice to have one big onion that you can use multiple times for one recipe. But again, white onions are great, yellow onions, whatever you have on hand. Now with fajitas, we're looking for those long strips to cook. So I'm going to keep the same shape of our onion, but then just chop one direction instead of two directions. So I have nice long strips. Just like this. All right. I'm going to kind of break them apart with my fingers and put them into my bowl to cook. I'm going to do the same thing with that red pepper. Chop that pepper in half. I'm going to use my hand to pull out the inside seeds and the flesh. These won't hurt you, they're not spicy, but we don't really want those little seeds floating around in our fajitas. And then I'm going to mimic the same cut as the onions. So I'm going to use my knife and just chop the pepper into strips, following the line of the shape of the pepper. Beautiful. Now we're looking for uniformity here. So ideally the size of our peppers and the size of our onion pieces are about the same, so that they will all cook evenly. All right, so we have some beautiful peppers in here. I actually already chopped a green pepper as well. So we have some beautiful colors going on. Perfect. Now we have this summer squash. So summer squash is very similar to a zucchini. You could use a zucchini as well. It takes on the flavor of other items. So we're going to also chop this into the same shape as our peppers and onions, so it all mixes together in our fajita vegetables. I'm going to start by cutting off both ends, the part with the stem and then the bottom. And then again, we're looking for about the size of this pepper. So I'm going to cut the squash in half, so we have the correct size. And then I'm going to chop it in half along the body. So we have those flat pieces to start cutting. From there, again, I'm just going to cut into strips. And we want to cut them thin All right. So we have these beautiful strips that look very similar to the size of our peppers and our onions. And now we have some yellow from the summer squash, in addition to all the other colors that we have going on. Always eating those colors, right? All right. Now these ones are a little bit thick on the body, so I'm going to chop them in half the other way as well. Again, going for the uniformity of my cutting. Right. All our vegetables are in. Good to go. All right, from here we're done with vegetables. So you can clear off your station or clear off your home kitchen, wash your hands, and prepare for our chicken. All right, now we're moving on to the meat portion of our fajitas. You can use any meat in fajitas, chicken, beef, pork, but today we're going with chicken. Chicken is super versatile, and it's also one of our leanest proteins. Today I have chicken tenders. I also recommend chicken breasts. Again, these are a lean meat, and they're also very easy to cook with. We're also continuing with the strips, so this will offer us a very easy way to continue to cut our chicken into strips. Now we want to think about portioning, right? So I didn't give you the amount of ingredients that go in a recipe. So I want you to think about, what are your portion sizes? When it comes to chicken, 3 to 4 ounces is a typical portion size, okay? So this container is about 12 ounces in total. So I know that this will be about 3 to 4 servings. Mixing with all of these vegetables, I think we're gonna have a nice 4 servings to work with here. So think about your family and the amount of meat that you're serving them. For myself and my husband, we'll often cook up an entire package like this and then separate it into Tupperwares so that we have our different meals for different days. As for the vegetables, I generally budget about 1 large onion for 2 people and then about 1 bell pepper per person. Those vegetables are going to cook down, but also the more vegetables the better, right? We got to get our vegetables in. I'm always an advocate for cooking once and eating twice. So, cook more than you need and save it for another night. We don't always have time to cook, so it's nice to have something ready. So we have these nice chicken strips, okay? We're going to continue cutting along the line of the chicken. So we have some nice strips mimicking our vegetables, all right? So you can do the same thing with chicken breasts. You'll just cut them a little bit more. You can also use thighs or other dark meats if you wish. But I would recommend not using chicken with bones for this recipe, just for ease. Beautiful. All right. Now we want to season this chicken. All right. So I have a few seasonings that I'd like to show you. I'm taking off my gloves with the raw chicken. At this point, you should go to your kitchen sink and wash up your hands really well. All right, so we have some simple spices today. Chili powder, cumin, and onion powder. These are pretty typical spices that come in taco seasoning. So instead of buying taco seasoning that has a lot of salt and a lot of extra preservatives, I recommend that you have these 3 spices in stock. These are all used in a lot of different types of dishes, so I find that I use them over and over and over for lots of different recipes. So again, this is to your taste. I'm going to sprinkle some chili powder on top of that chicken. Then we're going to go with the cumin, onion powder, and finally, a little bit of salt. Okay? The more you spice the more intense the flavor is going to be. So if you want it really spicy, as in spiced, not hot spicy, then add more spices. If you just want it lightly spiced, do a light sprinkling. Now we are spicing this chicken before we cook it so that the flavors can get into that chicken flesh. So I'm rubbing it with my fingers to mix it in. All right, so we're nice and seasoned. Again, if you're using your hands, then wash those hands, and we'll keep moving on. I'm just gonna move this to the side because now we are ready to do some cooking. So, I have my vegetables, and I have my chicken, and I have a frying pan. I'm going to use a cast iron skillet today because we're going to get it really nice and hot. But any skillet that you have at home that is large, maybe non-stick, is perfect. So we're going to start by turning on that burner. Again, we're going to go for a medium, high to high heat. And I'm going to put just a little bit of olive oil in the bottom of that pan. Now we are looking for just enough oil to coat the bottom, okay? This isn't gobs and gobs of oil in here. Just enough to coat the bottom and make sure the vegetables don't stick too much. We're gonna start with all those vegetables. Get them in the pan, cook them up nicely, and then we're gonna end with the chicken. And then we're good to go. So I'm just waiting until this pan is hot. Again, we're kind of mimicking the frying that's going on at the Mexican restaurant when they serve it on the fajita tray. All right, that's feeling nice and warm, so I'm going to dump in those vegetables. Wonderful. You can hear that slight sizzle. And I'm just going to give them a little quick toss to start off. Just get a little bit of oil on those peppers. Then we're going to just let the pan do its thing. You can see that nice steam coming off the vegetables. They're starting to brown a little bit on the edges. That's perfect. We want these to get soft and a little bit crisp. Nice and tender. Starting to look really nice. Again, they're getting a little bit of brown on the outside, they're getting softer. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt once again. Again, we're just going to bring out the flavor of those vegetables. At this point, you could also add some cracked black pepper or some more of those spices that we just used on the chicken. So the chili powder, the cumin, or the onion powder would all be great choices. Also, these vegetables are so vibrant in color. Smells great. All right. So the pan is hot. I'm using oven mitts. Ah, look how wonderful those look. I'm just going to dump them onto a platter. Oh yeah, beautiful. We have a little bit of vegetable remnants at the bottom, and that's okay. I'm just going to pull out those big pieces. But then I'm just going to put this right back on my stove, because now we're going to cook the chicken right in those vegetable juices. So I'm going to turn that flame back on. I'm going to add just a touch of oil to replenish the pan. Again, just enough to coat the bottom. We still have some oil right there. And then I'm going to put the chicken straight into the pan. Alright, use those tongs and spread the chicken pieces out across the pan so they have some space to brown on all sides. The nice thing about these small strips of chicken is they're going to cook pretty quickly. I'm just going to keep kind of jiggling them around so you don't get too stuck to the pan. And then when you see them starting to brown on one side, flip them over to the other side. We want our chicken to be cooked to a minimum of 165 degrees. It's pretty easy to cook chicken strips because you can literally cut them in half and see that there's no pink. Sometimes when we have a large breast of chicken or a thigh of chicken, we really want to check that temperature to make sure it's cooked all the way through. But in this case, we're just going to keep stirring it and then literally cut a piece in half to make sure it's cooked. This is smelling really good in here. Cumin and chili powder. Again, keep flipping those pieces, making sure every side is brown so the chicken is cooked throughout. Alright, this is looking pretty cooked. I'm going to take one of my larger pieces of chicken and just use my tongs to chop it in half. Alright, if you look inside, I don't see any pink. It's juicy. There's some great flavors coming off of this thing, but no pink. That means we are good to go. You can turn off that flame. Alright. And again, same thing. Look at that nice juicy chicken. Dumping that straight onto our vegetables. Alright, and there we are. We have our little fajita platter. Our vegetables on the bottom with the peppers, onions, and summer squash, and then our nice seasoned chicken on the top. There are multiple ways that I suggest that you serve this. Again, if you were at a Mexican restaurant, you'd probably get a side of tortillas and some guacamole and sour cream and all the toppings. That's great, but if we're looking for a little bit of low-carb option at home, I recommend serving over a bowl of whole grain rice. Okay, so here I have some brown rice that I can put into a bowl at the bottom. Sometimes I like to mix some hearty greens at the bottom of the bowl, so maybe some kale or some spinach. I can mix it in with my rice or just do greens. So you have some nice whole grains here. And then I'm just going to put my chicken and my vegetables right on top. Got a little fajita bowl going on, right? And then from there, you can add some of your Pico de Gallo to taste, and that will really add freshness to all of these lovely spices in the dish. Now, for those of you who love your sour cream, I recommend you grab that Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt still has the tanginess of sour cream, but not a lot of the fat. In fact, you can get the 0% fat Greek yogurt, and then you have no fat. Then you just have a lot of protein, and you have some great calcium. So I recommend a dollop on that on top of your fajitas. So there you have it, your meal for tonight, and maybe your meal for tomorrow. I hope that you enjoyed this recipe. Please continue to watch the Move to Equity blog for more videos in the future. And please reach out to Santara with your comments and suggestions. Thanks again.